Welcome, everyone. We have these two amazing men who, as I understand, are best friends. Don is a photographer and Bob is a journalist. So Don first, he's a resident of Philadelphia and a professor emeritus at Ursinus College since 2011. He moved to Philadelphia in 1972, where he was a staff photographer for the Evening and Sunday Bulletin until his resignation in 1981. He is the fourth Black newspaper staff photographer in the United States. He is a subject in the American Artists Oral History Smithsonian Institute and the History Makers, Art Makers. He is a recipient of fellowships from the John Simon Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Pew Foundation for the Arts. He is noted for his continuing body of work, Dust-Shaped Hearts, a body of monoprints using light sensitizers, casein, and dry earth pigments. He has lectured and exhibited internationally, including the Institute of Contemporary Art in Philadelphia and the National Museum of the Gambia. His work is in the collections of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Delaware Art Museum, the Michener Art Museum, the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, and other private and public collections. Don Camp. Bob Harris. Bob has worked in newspaper, print, and wire service journalism. For 17 years, he was with Temple University Health System Administration, heading government, philanthropy, and public relations efforts. He was a senior vice president in a global medical software corporation and has served on numerous boards of nonprofit charities and foundations. For 50 years, he has assisted Baha'i communities, both national and local, in 20 countries. He has collaborated with elected officials and leaders of thought on issues of justice, equity, and healing. Race unity has been a persistent focus in his professional and community service, as well as in his private and family life. He is enjoying retirement in New Jersey with his wife, Barbara, their 3 children and spouses, and their 6 grandchildren. Bob's focus for the next 25 years, at least, is to promote friendships that span America's racial divisions. Please join me in welcoming Bob and Don to share with us their thoughts together.
Sue, thank you very, very much. Every time I hear that introduction, I think, who's she talking about? Because it's really such a blessing. It's strange that that's me. That I've been blessed with all of that. But more than that is being able to share what we're sharing now with some hope that it will make things better, that it will do something for the future. So, Bob, you want to say something before I talk or before I do mine?
I'm happy to listen to you, Professor Kemp.
Okay. We're both going, well, we decided a long time ago that we were going to talk about Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is a 1967 movie, and it was really very popular and controversial in both the Black and white community then. It was a film, a story about the family of 2 people who fell in love and wanted to marry. He was Black and she was white. The film was one of very few films at the time to depict an interracial marriage in positive light. Interracial marriage at that time was illegal in 17 states. I mean, interracial marriage was a crime and interracial couples could and had been sentenced to jail, and worse. Interracial marriage was still illegal in 17 states in 1967 when I found my lifelong friend, Marie. Marie is French European, and she was raised in a small town, a small village, in fact, in France. I was raised in a small steel town in western Pennsylvania. Marie is my wife and my friend, and we got married on November 26th, 1967. My military orders that assigned me back to the United States were changed because we couldn't go to any of those 17 states because of laws that prohibited our marriage. I was first assigned to Langley, Virginia. Wonderful base, wonderful place, but couldn't go there. We were eventually assigned to Columbus, Ohio, where our marriage was legal, but not socially acceptable. When we would drive around or walk the streets, people would yell from their car or from across the street racial slurs. But being friends is difficult because we need to learn how to make room for each other. She's European French, and I am a Black American. My friendship with Marie meant that we needed to learn and relearn many things. Inflections and language mean different things. The volume of my voice meant that I was happy and excited about something, not angry. I had to learn where the nose on the wedge of the cheese was so that I wouldn't cut it off, thereby offending the entire table. I still think the nose of the cheese kind of moves around as each person cuts their piece. So we had little disagreements as we figured out how we would move forward together, but we love each other, and we knew that we had to learn how to blend our lives. Because of our marriage and our friendship, I've enriched my life far beyond that little steel town in western Pennsylvania. During our 50 years of marriage, we have shared our stories with each other. Very different, very beautiful stories. The stories that we continue to share become more intimate and beautiful every day. As friends, we know and share each other's stories. If we are associates, we don't really need to know each other's stories. If you are my friend, I want to know. Not only do I want to know, but I need to know your story. I want to know what we share. I want to know what we love. I want to know what hurts us. I want to know what makes us smile. I want to know, I just want to share what we know. Bob and I are here to promote race amity. And I see recognizing race amity and friendships as a force to reshape society. And we can't remain introverted and expected to see change in the society and the world. So now I propose that we suffer under the illusion that the less we discuss the issue of race, the more unified we are. But it's slowly being revealed that even though it can be embarrassing, it's essential that we share our stories with each other. To not share us with each other robs us of invaluable mutual growth experiences. Sharing our stories allows us to share and eliminate the roots of the problems that affect our human family. Now, I'm 80 years old. I started to say 90, but I'm 80 years old, 81 actually, and I've been wanting to say that ever since I turned 79. And I like to remind people that I am an octogenarian, so that means I have a whole lot of stories to share. Being born in 1940 seems to be a long time ago to some folks. So I want to share with you a little bit about who I am. I know very little history about my mother. I do know that she was born in 1904, and I do know that unfortunate things happened in her life that her sisters refused to share to pass on to her family. So I know very little about who she was. I know almost nothing about my maternal grandparents. I know a bit more about my father. He was born in Columbus, Ohio in 1892, and he was the son of a man who was born in Virginia in 1868. Now, I don't know if his parents, my great grandparents, were free or enslaved, but free or enslaved, it's possible that I, on either side, have Black family roots in this country since 1619, and that is possibly more than 400 years. My family oral history says that my father's mother, my paternal grandmother, was indigenous. So coming from North America, 20 to 50, 14 to 20,000 years. So my family, no matter how you look at it, has been in this country for a long time. So to many of you, I wish to be a good host and say, welcome to my country. In 1946, I was 6 years old, and I lived in this little field town in western Pennsylvania, 1 mile from the Ohio border. As I walked to school, I would walk past several buildings that were very interesting to me. I was learning to read, and I'd learned to read that there was the German home that I was passing, and the Croatian home, and the Serbian home. Across town was the Italian home. Around 1975, I returned to my hometown, just to look around and maybe find and talk with a few old friends. And I found a few of my childhood friends, and we talked. But I looked at those homes that made me wonder about where those countries were. I found that they were all abandoned and falling down. They were no longer social meeting places, as the immigrant families that built those social clubs had all become white. Now, last year, we lost Congressman John Lewis. He wrote a departure letter that would be published on the day of his funeral. In it, he wrote about Emmett Till. John Lewis and I were both 15 years old when we learned of the death and the funeral of Emmett Till. And it's important for you, it's important for me that you know about Emmett Till. If you don't know it, you should search and read the complete story of Emmett Till. It's important to know also that the injustice was founded on a lie. You should know that the woman, Caroline Bryant, who accused Emmett Till of offending her, on her deathbed admitted that she had lied. To John Lewis and to me, it was an example of what could happen to us Black boys. The murder of Emmett Till changed our lives, but it changed our lives in two different ways. There's a psychological reaction that occurs called that when there's a threat for survival. It is called fight or flight. You learn to fight the systems or you go to sleep. Congressman Lewis became a fighter. Now, I had been a straight A student up until that time. I took flight from life and I went to sleep. I became a failing student and spent the rest of my teen student years and much of my life as a failing student, and I got into a lot of trouble. Last year, the death of George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis policeman was daily news. It was supposed to be an arrest for a crime of attempting to pass a counterfeit $20 bill. So you all know the story because it was stressed, because it was really stressed. But he died saying, "I can't breathe." He died saying, "Mama." I want to ask you two questions. How many of you have ever passed a counterfeit $20 bill? But think a moment. A counterfeit $20 bill is made to look like a legitimate $20 bill. So you might have passed one, and so might I. Another question. How many of you have been arrested and placed in a jail cell? I have. And about 40% of the black men in Philadelphia have been arrested for something. I was arrested for a 13-year-old parking ticket. Or maybe it was because a white policeman saw me picking up my French European wife after work. Black-white friendship might mean that we share things that hurt us. I can share that sometimes the words that my friend means to be kind are hurtful. You know, being told to get over it, be patient, hurts. Telling me that I have achieved is proof that anyone can do it, hurts. Telling me that Rodney King, if only he had stayed still like the police were telling him, hurts. Eric Garner, if only he hadn't been selling those single cigarettes, those single untaxed and therefore illegal cigarettes, if only he hadn't, hurts. George Floyd, if only he hadn't tried to pass a counterfeit $20 bill, hurts. Elijah McClain, if only he hadn't been wearing a scarf over his face to keep him warm, hurts. If only. What about Breonna Taylor? If only she hadn't been home? If only I had paid that 13-year-old parking ticket that was put in my car while I was legally parked while doing my job as a press photographer? I can tell you, my car was often ticketed if the police saw me getting out of my car, as that was reserved for the press. Maybe I would not have ended up being jailed for picking up my wife had that not happened. So one solution is to find a friend and have many uncomfortable, no, not uncomfortable, but honest conversations. I mean, we know that there's only one race, the human race. And we know that the earth is but one country and mankind is citizens. And I do believe that unity through diversity allows us to contribute to build our society. Alain Locke wrote, "What we need to learn most is how to discover unity and spiritual equivalence underneath the differences which at present so disunite and sunder us, and how to establish some basic spiritual reciprocity on the principle of unity in diversity." That principle is a basic of the Baha'i faith. Friendship can mean that we learn how we offend each other and not do it anymore. Friendship can mean that we learn how to find ways to please each other and do it again. We can share each other's stories. On July 22nd of last year, the Baha'is of the United States received a letter from our international governing body. Among other directives given to us for that troubling time in America, we were directed to consult, to harmonize differing views and shape collective actions. Now, Bob and I have been associates for many years. I knew him and we had worked together on projects, but I didn't trust him. I didn't realize I didn't trust him until we started sharing our stories with each other. At some point, I realized that during those storytelling sessions that we had, I trusted this guy. Think about it. I'd known him for 40 plus years, and I didn't know that I didn't trust him. We had been meeting and sharing stories about who we are for quite a while. We had even arranged a meeting in the waiting room of his urologist to go to lunch afterwards. But after some very comfortable and uncomfortable, honest conversations, I realized that I trusted him. I had found a friend. I know where he lives. I know what his kitchen looks like. I know how he makes coffee. I know Barbara. They know where I live. He knows what my kitchen looked like. I know he doesn't like oysters. He knows Marie. We know the stories of our children. I pray for his nephew. We're two old guys who have known each other for more than 40 years who are consulting, telling each other our stories to harmonize our differing views and shape collective action. Our collective action is to share our story of friendship and encourage you to find someone to share your story with. Share your kitchen. Share your lives with each other. Learn who in their family needs a special prayer and pray for them. We need to share friendships with each other so that we can share the beauty of our world.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Meeting. First of all, I'm very happy to be here and always happy to be with Don. The condition of this world and this country is dire. We are splintered in the most dangerous way we can imagine. We cannot sustain the level of violence and oppression. And for Don and I, we cannot be silent in the face of injustice. If we are to recreate this world, to make it a loving and peaceful place based on justice, we have to realize that a big part of that new world will surely be friendships without barriers. And that's what Don and I are trying to do. This is our micro mini grassroots effort at bringing into reality our dream of a world that is no longer crippled by prejudice, a world that is no longer characterized by hate. And when Dr. King talked about his little children being judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, he was dreaming of justice for his kids. He was dreaming of a society that had decency and equity and civil rights and human rights and personal safety and freedom from violence and oppression and simple basic fairness. And we're still very far away from having that in our country. Don and I are partners. We're two old friends determined to be workers for race amity. We labor every day to try to put an end to the hatred in every heart, injustice on every street, discrimination in any form, and separation in any aspect of life. And we will always work with the powerful tools of love and friendship. Just 475 days ago, George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, and we were all witnesses to that murder and witnesses to the thousands of demonstrations and protests here and around the world in response to that public killing. And it was those specific painful events that inspired Don and I to come out of retirement and get into action and do whatever we can to help this poor, divided, ununified world we live in. Shortly after the horror on the street in Minneapolis, a challenging letter came from the Baha'i World Center about seizing this moment in time, this season of change in our country. Don and I figured out that two old friends should talk about the nature of their friendship and focus that friendship on racial justice. Friends, we're working on a cellular level, under the grass. That's where the grassroots are. We're using the lowest common denominator we can think of, and that is the friendship of two people who are sworn not to let the difference of our skin color separate us. The whole business of racism must be eradicated. And so we two old men label ourselves as anti-racist, and we want to do everything we can to end it once and for all. Don and I are now living in the world of hope. We hope our very simple vision will reach many people today. And here's that vision. We hope that some of the people, or even one person with us today, would find a partner, a true friend. Find a friend who does not look like you and dedicate your friendship to undo take down, knock over, and upset anything that would separate God's people ever again. It's a simple idea, really simple, but it's not so easy to actually do it. Let's get started. First, you have to think of somebody who's your friend or acquaintance from a different race. Consult with that friend and see if they would like to deepen your friendship, the one you already have, and work with you to pursue race amity. Unite your tiny part of the human race and solve this problem for just 2 people, and then encourage more people to do the same. Don and I had that specific conversation in 2020 when Mr. Floyd was killed. And then in July of 2020, when the letter came out, that July 22nd letter, we've been talking about it just about every day. And we've been talking to lots of people thanks to Zoom, and the idea is spreading, and we're spreading this idea right now. In 1910 in Paris, the son of the founder of the Baha'i Faith inspired a gathering in Paris to shake off old patterns of prejudice and separation and work for world unity. He said these words: "If you desire with all your heart friendship with every race on earth, your thought, spiritual and positive, will spread. It will become the desire of others, growing stronger and stronger until it reaches the minds of all men." Imagine if a movement of people, 2 at a time, could spread love and understanding and sympathy and compassion and justice and equity. It could catch on. It could catch fire. It could start very small and then grow into something bigger because it is motivated and powered and ignited by love. Thinking big is really fine, and this could grow big, and I hope it does. But right now, I'm thrilled with what's happened to me in the past year, since Don and I have been concentrating on our friendship. It's been a rapid development time for me as a person, because I have a friend who listens to me. We're frank about even the most sensitive issues. And in those honest exchanges, I think a lot of learning has gone back and forth. I have already learned so much. What is it that I have learned? I've learned that African-American families are constantly sharing data and intelligence about where it's safe to shop, to park, to walk, to drive. And like people in a war, they strategize about how they're going to be safe, how to keep the young men safe, away from the police or jails. Don told me that every gathering of his family had a quick rundown on what remarkable insults they had endured, where not to go, which police officers were a particular danger, what the teacher said to me today. I never dreamed that African-American families, even little kids, were under this kind of pressure to share urgent news, potentially life-saving news. As a white person, I never had one conversation like that. This revelation motivates me to look for ways to do many more kind things, caring things, respectful things for people of color. Hold the door, give somebody a place in line, smile at them, so that the family discussion on that particular night might have some good news amidst all the other crappy stuff that's going on. Maybe my small caring act would ease their burden or lift the scent of danger that is so widely endured. I've learned that I've been encouraged and smiled at and helped by every police officer I've ever met, every teacher I've ever had, every banker, every employer, every coworker I've ever known. I've had people go far out of their way to help me 100 times. And that was not the story for Don and many others. My wife and I have always been warmly welcomed in hotels or restaurants or cruise ships, anywhere. But that's not the story for Don and his European French wife, Marie. In many cases, their precious time together had been ruined, rudely, ugly, meanly. Went to the Galapagos Islands and felt like he was in some rural jail, in some rural red, oh my God. The stuff that happens, you can't believe it. Don talked about trust, and I've learned that the ability to trust people is very different in white America than it is in the African American community. Trusting someone can be dangerous for my friend Don. Not for me. There was never any plotting against me, anyone bitter that I had gotten a job or gotten a raise or some recognition. For me to trust anyone carried very little risk, but for Don, it's an unusual and almost unique moment when you find someone you can give your full confidence to. And this cannot be a healthy way to live, to feeling that danger is always near. I also learned that I can choose not to think about racism anytime I want. White people can check out of this race amity movement at any time. Not so with African Americans, because they live with the weight and the consequence of this oppression on a daily basis. It's a matter of life and death. I've also learned that Bob is still pretty unconscious. Talk too much white splaining. I feel too little. I lack sensitivity or empathy. I did not learn the history or the reality that I should know. I take up lots of space. My white privilege efficiency causes me to roll over people, even people I love. And I just go about shaping the world the way Bob wants it to be. I'm not required to navigate the world of African Americans, but they certainly know. They have to know how to navigate the world of white privilege. Many of my African American friends are forced sometimes to alter their personalities for a given situation, being hyper-conscious of how they say things, how they assert their rights, especially if they're in a job situation or in a police stop. It's terrible. The list is long. I've learned a lot, but the most important thing I've learned, and please listen to this, is that I really, really needed a friend to help me to see. I thought I could see, but it turns out that Bob was almost legally blind. My friend Don helped me see things that I would have no way of knowing if he wasn't my friend. I had immature insight, very shallow. And I guess I was too scared to find out about reality. I needed to find the courage to reject so much of our society that is just patently unjust and needs to be changed. Don helped me. He was willing to walk with me, to listen to me, to love me as we built our little team to try to do some good. We're on the same page about working together. We old guys are doing our very best to break down the walls that have kept us and millions of others separated. We've got to supplant the existing order with a new order of true fellowship and intimate relationships and justice. And I figure that those new relationships will be interracial and diverse from the start. Walls definitely need to be broken down, of course, but we also need to learn how to build bridges over the chasms that still divide people. We hope that we can inspire some of you to try this intentional friendship thing. If you want to try building a friendship bridge, Don and I are willing to meet with you and share with you some of the nitty-gritty things that have helped us build a friendship, the likes of which neither of us had experienced before. We could have a very informal interracial friendship support group, and it would be fun. It would be a lot of fun. A joy for sure. But on the streets where we live, it's really life and death right now. We're trying to tackle the most intractable problem in America. So verily, it is hard work. It's a big mountain to climb. I was told about a recent survey in which 80% of the white people surveyed, 80%, stated that they did not have one friend of another race. 8 out of 10 white people had 0 Black friends. We are in much worse shape than I ever dreamed. So the mountain is big and the road is rough, and we need to do something today. And we all need to become part of the solution, because silence and turning our backs is not ever going to be good enough for any of us. So let's get together again and again and talk about it. Like Don said in his remarks, it does not get better if we don't discuss it. It only gets worse. Let's shine the light of honesty on it, and let's get pumped to change it. How can one person change it? One person can find a friend and start learning. Our friend David Hoffman calls this learning, this friendship, this effort that Don and I have been involved in, the anti-racist cycle-breaking work of the hour. I've been so in love with that idea. Whoops, there it is. My poster. Anti-racist cycle breaking work of the hour. It sounds pretty grand, doesn't it? But it really just means finding a friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
What a powerful presentation from both of you. And how in sync you are in the way in which you see it and what needs to be done. Don and Bob, please share your last thoughts.
My last thoughts are that none of us are able to achieve what we as human beings are able to achieve until all of us can do it. I talked a lot about the what was said around my family table. There's the common thing: you cannot hold someone down in the mud without staying there yourself. And we really need to understand how our exchanges with each other help us build what we're supposed to be building.
Thank you, Don. Bob, do you have any last thoughts to share?
Other than I wish everybody would listen to what Don just said. That's the best advice I could give you.
You always take the easy way out, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both so very much for what you shared. And thank everyone here who has come on and been a part of this process. Hopefully it will grow and expand. In the Baha'i faith, we call it expanding nucleus. And that means that as we learn and something different, we share it with others and ask them to share it with others. And the more we do that, the more we can build the kind of communities that Bob and Don have been talking about here today. Thank you very much for joining us.